ഇത് Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Right News. This is Neethus. Today's slide, we're going to have a look at writing task 2, discussion and opine essay. So first, let me give you an idea about what a discussion and opine essay is all about. What is a discussion and opine essay? Just like what you can understand from the name, in this type of essay, you have to discuss the topics given to you. So, a question will be given, 2 sides would be there in that question, and you will have to discuss both these sides in the body paragraphs, and you should also state your opinion in the 3rd paragraph. So, introduction, where you will paraphrase and you will write the thesis statement, which would specify what you would be discussing in the upcoming paragraphs. Then you have to write body paragraph 1, which would be one side of the question. Then in the 2nd body paragraph, you will write the other side of the question. So that means total 3 paragraphs. So far 3 paragraphs. Then you have to write a 4th paragraph, which is called as your opinion paragraph. You don't have to write heading and all, okay? You do not. I repeat, you do not have to write headings or anything. So next paragraph will be your opinion essay, opinion paragraph, and you will state your opinion there with required explanations, and then you will have a conclusion. So total how many paragraphs? So introduction 1, body paragraph 1, 2, body paragraph 2, 3, opinion paragraph 4, conclusion paragraph 5, total 5. And just like in all other types of essays, you have to give valid explanations, examples. These things should be given. Okay, so that's about it. And one thing my students ask me sometimes is that they come up with different problems. Okay, one problem is that they don't get points. It's very hard for them to brainstorm and find points. Generally, if you look at people, some people are good with ideas. They get better ideas. They're used to going for debates and writing articles and stuff like that. So for those kind of people, it would be a bit easier. I mean, some people are thinkers. They would just simply sit and think. That is their hobby. That is something which they do regularly. For those kind of people, finding points would be very easy. But for others, there's another group of people, especially nurses, engineers, people in business field. These people come and tell me that it's hard for them to think about these topics and find explanations or examples for it. It is really difficult for them. That is because they're used to focusing on specific things like their own subject. For example, if someone is in computer science, someone's doing computer science, specializing in computer science, the only thing they think about is the computer language and things like that. They hardly think about the things happening around them, or even topics that are given in IELTS. Okay, so it's very difficult for them to come up with points. The same applies for nurses. They see patients, doctors, bystanders. That's all they see. Of course, they might know about things happening in or around them, but they don't sit and think. They don't really get time to sit and think about various topics that are given in IELTS. So it's really difficult for them to come up with the points. Yes, what I'm trying to say is, so since many people are facing this problem, me as a trainer, I really have to come up with a solution for that. So the best way to bring solution for that is to you know, what I do is like I sit and think about the topic. I do a bit of a research and I try to figure out if there are new methods in which they can do it. I can't just go and tell them, oh, just think. No, that's not going to work. You can't really go to your students and ask them to think and think and think when they actually have 0 points in their mind. So what I think you can do is, I'm not asking you to by heart any essays, and another student of mine actually asked me if it is okay to by heart essays, and I said no, and I feel so sorry for her, because you should never even think of by hearting essays, because it's impossible. There are n number of topics, and even if you're referring a particular book, that book might cover maybe like 200 to 300 topics, but there are n number of topics, so they can ask you any topic outside this essay book. What if they ask you anything outside it and you've learned all the 300 essays by heart? It's going to be such a waste of time, and you would be so disappointed, and I don't want any of my students to go through that. Another point I noticed, another problem with it is not humanly possible to by heart all the 300 essays in it. I mean, you're not preparing for any competitive exam or anything like that. You're just writing IELTS, which is an English testing system, so where your English will be tested. So you should be focusing more on improving your language than by hearting essays. So what do I do to improve my language? That is a whole different thing. But now our point is ideas. So if you ask me, are ideas important? This is just an English test, right? I would say ideas are important. Only if you have ideas will you be able to express them. And we use language to express our ideas. So if you don't have ideas, what are you going to express? You have nothing to express. So ideas are very important as far as your IELTS test is concerned. So your language is important. I said that is altogether another thing. We have been discussing about language for so long, and the aspects of language that you have to focus on. We've discussed it in the previous lives, and we will be discussing in the upcoming lives as well. So today let's focus on ideas, brainstorming ideas. So this is something which I want my students to focus on and work on and improve. So what you can do is, when you get a free time, don't read an essay, all right? Take a question, read a couple of points. So first, most of the time what happens is, I think if you've noticed, when you discuss questions in the class and when you ask students for points, initially there will be a silence. And then one person will break that silence. That person will start answering the question, or will come up with a point. Once that person comes with a point, rest everyone will have points. They'll all come up with their points. So what are we doing? We're actually triggering some parts of our brain and making it think, and it's thinking of different kinds of points. So similarly, what you can artificially trigger your brain. I think that's what it's called. I don't know the technical word for that. I might be using the wrong term because I'm no psychiatrist or psychologist or someone who learns about brain or mind. I'm not a doctor, so that usage might be wrong. I'm not sure. Whatever it be, what I mean is that you motivate your brain to think in that path. So when a question is given, your brain does not know anything about it. Sometimes splitting up the question will help. All right, so you get a question, you split it into parts, you try to describe it to yourself. So most of the times students don't get points because they don't understand the question well. Okay, they read the question once and then they think they have understood the question, where in fact they have not even given attention while reading. So they have understood 0% of it, and they think they have understood the question. And since they think they've understood the question, when they don't get the points, they think it's the problem with their brain. But it's actually the problem with the person, because the person did not try to understand the question well, did not read the question well. So the first time you read it, I know it's really difficult to focus the first time you read it, and only 3-4 lines before when you start focusing, the question is over. So what can you do? You read it. Then you read it in a thought that you have to explain this question to someone else. So then you will split the question and you will say the question on your own. And while you're trying to say it on your own, there will be parts you have not given attention to. That parts you'll have to refer. You'll refer and say it. That's how the reading part is complete. That's how you will finish your reading part. So once you're done reading the question, splitting it into parts, chances are very high that you would get some points. Your brain might start to think about points. If not, then nowadays we have ChatGPT and Gemini and all these apps and AI tools and stuff like that. So you can just put this question to ChatGPT or Gemini. I like ChatGPT for these kind of things. So you put it and ask ChatGPT for points for this. And you'll only read one point. You will try to elaborate it, and if you don't know how to elaborate it, you will ask them to elaborate, and then you will also take example. If you can find an example on your own, that's well and good, but if you're not able to, then ask them to find an example for you. Right after that, guess the next point. Okay, the next point, and try to explain it. You don't have to write. I'm not asking you to write or do anything. This would even improve your speaking. Just sit there, take a chair, sit there, take a cup of coffee and relax and take your mobile phone. You're not even learning, okay? You're just going through some topics and you're just speaking on it. So you will take a point and you will start explaining it just like how I am explaining something to you. I do it all the time. I talk to myself. I act as if I'm talking to a group of people when in fact there aren't anyone in front of me. I know that's a bit crazy. You shouldn't be trying it at home because your family might think you're a bit crazy. But you know, having said that, I would say it helps you so much in your speaking and also in your writing. It helps your brain to think that way. So every day try to do 5 or 10 questions like that, cover different topics. You'll just don't try to by heart. By hearting it is not going to work because you'll forget. And what you need is not just a point. You need explanations and examples for it. Those things have to come from your mind. So by hearting is not going to work. Okay, so make sure that you don't by heart anything. So this is one thing so you are going through different questions and you are looking at the points, you're discussing the points with whom? With yourself. You're asking questions to yourself. You're asking yourself what's going on, how it will work and stuff like that. So you yourself are going to do it. Okay, you're not going to have any help. Don't think you will get any help. Some students complain. They say, we don't have any help. Actually, nobody has. Nobody has anyone at their home who would just sit and talk to them in English the whole time. I mean, it's not going to work. Of course, there are families where they speak in English at home, but other than that, so those people actually speak good English, right? But for those students who are struggling with English, they don't really have a lot of people, or they don't even have anyone who would just talk to them and would focus on them improving the language. Nothing. You have to find opportunities. You have to find possibilities. It's your responsibility. It's not anyone's responsibility. You are a grown-up. You are an adult. Stop complaining. Act like an adult. All right, age doesn't matter. Even today in the class we had a discussion about this, and I was telling one of my students that my earlier batch was way better than this batch. Way better in the sense they were very active, and this batch is not very active. So I was trying to tell that, and I said those students, though they were hyperactive, they were really good at studies, they had good scores, that could be because they had just graduated from their 12th grade. So they came to the class right after their graduation from 12th grade. So that made them that was one of the reasons why it was easy for them. So these students came in and what happens with these students, they're very hyperactive. So another student who heard the story told me like, oh, well, you're saying age matters. So I told her like, oh, age doesn't matter. I was not talking about age. I was talking about the exposure the students had. These students were learning in English. They wrote their exams in English, and right after that they came to the class. They're so fresh, fresh from the oven, just like fresh from the oven. They're so fresh. So they have it in them, and it was easier for them. So you guys took a gap, so things are a bit different with you all. So that's what I was saying. Another point I wanted to notice that even now, when I was trying to say something, I was a bit distracted. Since I was a bit distracted when I came to a wording, I didn't know how to continue it. You would come across the situations as well, and you will have no idea how to continue that sentence. So what you do is you either break and try to rephrase it, or you try different combinations of words with it and see if it works. So these are the easy ways in which you can make it sound natural and normal. Like everybody makes mistakes. I mean, mistakes can happen to just anyone, whether that person is an expert in English or an amateur person, anyone, a beginner or an expert. All these people can actually make mistakes. So it is okay to make mistakes, but then while speaking, even while you're speaking to yourself and practicing, you should know how to tackle those situations, how to handle those situations, how will you overcome those situations. So you shouldn't just stop, leave that part and move. You should stay there, make that sound, make that sentence sensible by putting words or taking out words. You do the job. You somehow try to finish it, or break that sentence and rephrase it. That's another thing that you can do. The one that I did was I rephrased it because I was a bit distracted and I couldn't remember why I said that part of the sentence, but I knew there was an idea in my mind. That's what I was trying to convey. So there was no other way than rephrasing it. So I just completely erased it and I rephrased it. That's what I did. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, just go back to the audio. Those who have joined the live now might not understand what I'm talking about. If you skip backward a little bit, you will know that I was stuck at a point and I rephrased that sentence, okay? I didn't know how to take it forward. I was so stuck and I was distracted. So I stopped it and I rephrased. So you can have a look at it. Have a look at how I did it. So I was giving an idea about that too to my students. Okay, so we've had a lot of discussion about discussion essay. Then we discussed about what else did we discuss? The points, brainstorming different points. How will we get different points? What are the activities we can do, and how we can talk, whether we should talk with someone, and how some people complain about not having friends. And I also mentioned about an incident that happened in my class today with some of my students, and I said how some of my students were able to perform better than the others. It was because they were right from the oven, so they were so fresh and everything was easy for them. So others have to work hard. I was telling about that because I wanted to mention about exposure. Exposure plays a good role, but when you don't have anything, there is no point in sitting and complaining about it. Just making beautiful things out of what you have is more important than sitting and crying. It's not just more important, that's how it is, that's how life is. When you don't have anything or when you don't have certain things, you can't just sit and cry and die. You have to overcome it in one way or the other. So now let's go to the material, and yes, you'll be able to see the material on the screen now. I'll read the question and explain the points to you, and we'll discuss the question and read a sample answer. Look at the question, read the question. IELTS Writing Task 2 question. Some people think that the cultural traditions may be destroyed when they use as money-making attractions aimed at tourists. Did anyone listen? I'm sure no one. Let's read it slowly. Some people think, okay, this is what I said, what I meant by breaking the question. Some people think, okay, that cultural traditions, cultural traditions. What do you mean by cultural traditions? The culture, the traditions may be destroyed when they're used as money-making attractions. Okay, so culture and traditions, it could mean the food, the art forms, the other cultural activities, customs and practices, all these things would come under this. So they would be destroyed if they're used as money-making attractions. So this is what I said. You will have to try saying this question on your own. I broke the question into parts, a couple of parts, and then I read it slowly. Then I'm trying to repeat that question on my own without looking at the question. So the question was about the question. What did the question say? Some people think cultural traditions. Okay, what is cultural traditions? That I discussed earlier. Will be destroyed. Okay, if they're used as money-making attractions. Okay. Aimed at tourists. Okay, for tourists. Others believe it is the only way to save these traditions. Oh, others believe. This is the only way to save these traditions. Okay. Discuss both views and give your opinion. What do you think? What do you think of this? They're saying cultural traditions would be destroyed if they're used for money-making attractions, if they're used as money-making attractions. Some others are saying, well, it won't be destroyed. It would only save these traditions. Okay, so let's think of the scenario like this. What are cultural traditions? And so you should think of the scenario like this. What are cultural traditions? It could mean anything, like food, clothing, cultural activities like Bharatanatyam, Mohiniyattam, Kathakali. I mean, if we're talking about Kerala. Okay, so these are the culture, some practices, some things that we do, like going to temple in the morning, giving offerings to God. Okay, those kind of practices. How are we making these money-making attractions to tourists? How do we do that? How do we make these cultural traditions and money-making attractions to tourists? So some tourists are coming to your place, or let's say to Kerala. They come to see this culture and tradition and everything. So when you think about it like this, the picture comes, the tourists coming to enjoy the culture and tradition. What all things will happen there? Some movies might come to your mind. Some movie scenes might come to your mind. And you can think about what will be the consequence. I always say build a storyline. If you build a storyline one after the other, it will come. All right? That's what you have to do. So where did we reach? The tourists are coming to see our culture and traditions. So they want to see everything. And how are you going to make this as money-making attractions to tourists? Imagine there is a rule that one particular cultural activity can be played or performed only at 4 a.m. in the morning. That is the tradition. Okay? But since the tourists only come by 10 a.m., that is being performed at 10 a.m. Or if we say Kathakali or Mohiniyattam or anything, there is a traditional way in which it has to be performed. But since the tourists may not understand, they have to modernize it. They have to make it something else. Not Kathakali, something that looks like Kathakali, so that they would be able to attract these tourists. Another thing that they will have to do is change, if it is about the costume, the traditional clothes like sari. If the tourists are not able to wear it properly, they will have to stitch it and give to them. So that destroys the whole purpose of it, right? Then when tourists comes to your place, what all things will you show? You'll take them to the temple to make things appealing. What else would you do? Would you do something there? No, can't think of anything. So one thing, it will destroy the culture, the tradition, cultural art forms for money making, because they might perform this art on different times without following the traditional patterns and the rules, so that it would be appealing to the customers. For example, in many places, Kathakali is performed not in the authentic way, that is performed in a modernized way, so that the tourists will understand it and they'll come watch it. Okay. So some other customs and practices like Theyyam, that's actually an art, but if you want some practices or cultural clothes, traditional clothes, you can mention about that. Alright, so this is how you think about points. Now we'll take and look at the brainstorming ideas that are given to us. Tourism, view 1 is tourism can destroy cultural traditions. Oh, tourism can destroy cultural traditions. How? Main point 1, traditions may become commercialized. Okay, that's why they're being destroyed. We understand. Like how? Performance may be altered to entertain tourists rather than preserve authenticity. Traditional ceremonies may lose their original meaning. Oh. Cultural practices may be simplified or exaggerated. That is something which we did not discuss. See, this is how you're first thinking on your own. I'm showing you the whole process, right from reading a question to thinking for points. So here we're finding a new point. You will learn it. Even though we had a point, I said it in a very simple way, like in a way that when a LKG student will understand. That is how I said it. I said we have cultural practices. We would perform in such a way we would perform it to entertain tourists, and we'll have to make some compromises in the authenticity. So this is what I said. But here you have some better words. Like performances may be altered to entertain tourists rather than preserve. It may be altered. The performances may be altered to entertain the tourists rather than preserve authenticity. So traditional ceremonies lose their original meaning. Cultural practices may be simplified or exaggerated. Okay, for example, we have the practice of taking water. When you go to temple, we have the practice of taking water in the hand and then putting it over your head. So that's a very simple practice. We might complicate it a bit. We might say you have to take this water, hold it for some time, then close your eyes and you have to pray for a few seconds. Then you take this water and then you put it over your head. I'm just giving you an example. So we over exaggerate things, we overcomplicate things, or we might even simplify certain other things that are very difficult. So that can happen. Examples: religious festivals turned to tourist shows. Some religious festivals that are being turned to tourist shows. Traditional dances modified to suit visitors' preferences. So traditional dances, Kathakali modified to meet visitors' preferences. You can explain that. Okay, this is just bullet points. These are just bullet points for you to have an idea about it. In main point 2, local communities may focus on profit. Financial gain can become more important than cultural values. Younger generation may learn traditions only as a source of income. So what is happening? Local communities may focus on profit. Financial gain can become more important than cultural values. Younger generation may learn traditions only as a source of income. So what is the main point to that? Since it is used as money making, younger generations may learn traditions only as a source of income. Sacred customs may be performed too frequently for commercial purposes. That is another point. Sacred customs may be performed too frequently for commercial purposes. Okay. Another point is, so we had 2 points. One point saying that when art forms are used as money making attractions for tourists, when what was the question? The question was when cultural traditions are used as money making attractions for tourists, they're destroyed. And the other side is they're actually saved. Others believe it is the only way to save these traditions. Why it can destroy the cultural traditions? Because tourism, younger, that point is not relevant. Okay. A financial gain can become more. Local communities may focus more on profit. Financial gain can become more important to culture. How it is destroying? Okay, these are the results. So this is something which some of my students write. That's why I've put it here, to show you that when you're asked how, okay, they're saying, what are they saying? Cultural traditions are destroyed when used as money making cultural traditions are destroyed when used as money making attractions. How? One point that we said was because they may modify the art. They may simplify or exaggerate customs. Third one, you cannot say local communities. That is a result of it. Since this is being commercialized, local communities focus on it. If you're not able to understand it, just ignore it. That's all I can tell you. Sacred customs may be performed too frequently for commercial purpose. This is a good point. Examples: traditional crafts mass produced to increase sales. Sacred rituals performed for tourists outside their proper context. When you say that, this is a point, you can give a direct example. For example, there is there is a temple called, you can give it a name, Vaishnav temple. In Vaishnav temple, there is an important traditional culture wherein in which the pujari performs, ideally it has to, puja. Ideally the puja has to be performed only once in a year, but for the tourists they actually do it for maybe like 3 to 4 times a year. So the sacred acts, rituals that are performed for multiple times, and that would destroy the real meaning of it and the purity of such traditions. Okay, so that's that. Then next viewpoint. Tourism is the best way to preserve traditions. Tourism provides financial support. So let's think about the other side. What is the other side? What is the other side? The other side is tourism is providing, tourism actually saves them, right? What is the question saying? It is the only way to save these traditions. This is the only way to save these traditions. So traditions or cultural traditions will exist only if the artists or people performing it exist. If they have to exist, they need money. So tourism can bring money that can help the artists and the performers exist, survive, and thereby saving the act. And also, any art form or culture will sustain only if it is subject to changes or accept changes, and there is something called the give and take policy when it comes to traditions. So this is my understanding about it. This is what I think. This is what is in my brain. So let's see the points. Tourism is the best way to preserve traditions. Main point is tourism provides financial support. Income helps fund cultural events and festivals. Artisans and performance can earn a living from traditional skills. Communities have an incentive to continue cultural practices. So, and this is about art form, right? That point, artisans and performance, that part, what we discussed was about artists, performers. But there is also a category called as there is also a category called the community. They would get an incentive to do continue practicing it. For example, there is a culture in India where we cook food with wood and wood stoves. So many people, or they make curries or food using stones. I mean, not that they actually use it. They use stones to grind, and instead of grinders, they use this. So when tourists come and when they get paid for it or when they get incentives for it, they would feel like continuing it. So those cultures and traditions would continue only if tourists come. Okay? So you can mention that. So you should speak out. You know what is the problem? I tell my students to speak in practice, but they never listen. They would say, they come for speaking practices, and then they wouldn't answer well. So I would ask them, so do you practice? And they would say, oh, yes, ma'am, I practice every day. I'm like, how do you practice? I read all the answers and the questions. I'm like, that's not going to do the job. That's not how it works. You have to speak in practice. So similarly, even for writing, you have to speak in practice, because that's when you hear those thoughts and your brain will think like that, and you will get better ideas. If you want better ideas, if you want clarity of thoughts, you have to speak in practice. Okay? Even for me, when I'm sitting and teaching you, I have to, when I consciously speak in practice, when I say something in my mind, I get a complete idea about it. Otherwise, it would be vague and complicated in my head. If I want clear ideas, I'm able to give clear ideas or points because I'm speaking it out. Okay, it's not that I'm better than you, I'm just like you. Okay, yes, so that's one point. I'm very energetic and vibrant when it comes to these kind of topics because I see this every day with my students. My students do this, and I always tell them not to. I tell them to speak out and practice. Well, let's look at the next point, main point 2. Tourism increases awareness. Oh, we didn't think about this point. Let's see what that is. Visitors learn about local culture and history. Oh, young people become more interested in preserving traditions. Okay, tourism increases awareness. So what is happening? These tourists come, they learn about the culture and tradition. So what happens? This spreads to a different place, and even youngsters will become interested in it because of its popularity. It would become popular. Youngsters will also become interested in it. It would become more popular. Cultural heritage gains national and international recognition. Examples: traditional crafts attracting global attention, folk festivals drawing both tourists and local participants. Opinion: I believe tourism can help preserve cultural traditions if it is managed responsibly, although excessive commercialization may reduce authenticity. Tourism often provides the financial resources and public interest needed to keep traditions alive for future generations. I'll repeat the last part again. I believe tourism can help preserve cultural traditions if it is managed responsibly. Although excessive commercialization may reduce authenticity, tourism often provides the financial sources and public interest needed to keep traditions alive and for future generations. So the words that you have to learn from this is the word you have to learn from this is it gives the financial resources. This is the main point. And public interest. When it is popular, everyone will be interested in it. The youngsters will be interested in it. Financial resources and public interest needed to keep the traditions alive for future generations. Keep the traditions alive for future generations. Okay? Clear? Now, we're done with the discussion part. We're done discussing the points. Let's look at how we put this into essay. That's where the language comes. So now that you have ideas, you need to have language to express it and present it beautifully. So presentation is important. So let's see how it works. Okay, these are the answers. I'll quickly read the samples for you. It is irrefutable that cultural traditions are an important. Let me see if I can help you with something. It is irrefutable that cultural traditions are okay, one second. So read along with me. It is irrefutable that cultural traditions are an important part of a nation's heritage. Some people believe that using them as tourist attractions can damage their authenticity, while others argue that tourism is the only way to preserve them. In the question, they use the word save. Here they're using the word preserve them. Okay? Instead of the word damage, they've used the word destroy, they've used the word damage their authenticity. This essay will discuss both views before presenting my opinion. A good thesis statement. Done. Well and good. Now, one of the on the one hand, cultural traditions may lose their original meaning when they are commercialized. In order to attract more visitors, organizers may often modify traditional ceremonies and performance to make them more entertaining. As a result, these customs can become less authentic. For example, some traditional dances are shortened and adapted for tourists, which reduces their cultural significance. On the other hand, tourism can provide the financial support needed to keep the traditions alive. What does it give? We saw 2 points, right? Financial support. It gives the financial support, and we learned one more point: financial resources and public interest. Okay, so on the other hand, tourism can provide financial support too, support needed to keep the traditions alive. Revenue from visitors can help fund festivals, museums, cultural events. In addition, local artists and craftsmen can earn an income from their traditional skills. So what's happening? Tourism can provide financial support needed for the traditions to stay alive, to keep the traditions alive. Revenue from visitors can help fund festivals, museums, and cultural events. In addition, local artists and craftsmen can earn income from their traditional skills. For instance, many rural communities continue producing traditional art handicrafts because tourists are willing to buy them. In my opinion, tourism is an effective way to preserve cultural traditions as long as their authenticity is protected. In conclusion, although tourism may sometimes lead to commercialization of cultural practices, it also provides valuable financial support and raises awareness of the cultural heritage. Therefore, I believe the responsible tourism plays a crucial role in preserving traditions. That's your opinion. Responsible tourism. Let's look at another sample. It is often argued that cultural traditions are threatened when they are turned into tourist attractions for financial gain. However, others believe that tourism is the most effective way to ensure their survival. This is more like a band 8 essay, okay? This essay will discuss both perspectives before presenting my own view. On the one hand, the commercialization of cultural traditions can reduce their authenticity. In an effort to attract more visitors, organizers may modify traditional ceremonies, dances, and festivals to make them more entertaining. Consequently, these practices may lose their original culture and historical significance. They modify it. These are the words you should note: modify, financial support, then public support. Okay, for some traditional performances shortened or modernized to suit tourists' preference. Tourists, you see the apostrophe is put up. The apostrophe is put after the S. Preferences rather than preserve their true meaning. On the other hand, tourism can provide resources necessary to protect cultural heritage. The revenue generated from visitors can be used to fund festivals, maintain historical sites, and support local artists. Furthermore, tourism creates public interest in traditional customs, encouraging younger generations to learn and continue them. For instance, many traditional craft industries have survived because tourists purchase locally made products. In my opinion, tourism is one of the most practical ways to preserve cultural traditions. Without financial support, many customs could gradually disappear. Nevertheless, strict measures should be introduced to ensure that traditions remain authentic and meaningful. See, this is how the opinion is presented. The opinion presented here is that cultural traditions or arts, they need money that can only be given by tourism. So tourism is important for it. Tourism does not destroy it, they help it survive. um, they're actually saving them, but it has to be responsibly done. If you want, you can give that kind of a view, or you can completely give tourism saves or keeps arts alive, because it has to be funded. Without money, it is not going to exist. If that is your opinion, you can clearly state that. This is a bit of a difficult way of this could be a bit confusing, but you can write in your own way. That is also correct, okay? That's not wrong. It's just that I showed a bit of a complicated way of writing it. In conclusion, although tourism can sometimes lead to commercialization of cultural practices, it also offers significant benefits for their preservation. Therefore, I believe that responsible tourism is an effective means of safeguarding cultural traditions for future generations. So I quickly went through the samples because these things are already available on screen. If you read along with me, things must have been easy. But if you were not able to do it, you can just take a screenshot or pause the video and then read it. Take your own time and read. Now I have a homework for you. The homework is I've given a different question. Some people say that industrial growth is necessary to solve poverty, but some other people argue that industrial growth is creating environmental problems and it should be stopped. Okay, so this would reduce, what are they saying? Industrialization would reduce poverty. That is what they say. Okay, what other people are saying, it would cause environmental problems and it should be stopped. Discuss both views and give your opinion. So I've given the brainstorming ideas. You can take a screenshot of it. You can follow the same process that we followed. Now, reading the question like how I read now is not enough. You know that. You know the right way to read it. You will read it like that. You will think of points and then you will come and read it. And you will try it on your own. And you can also take a screenshot of this sample essay that I've written for it. You can go through it as well. That's it. I hope this video was helpful, or this live was helpful to you. If you have any questions related to this, or if you have any suggestions, please feel free to comment. I'll definitely answer it, or will definitely address it. So we will see you again on another live. That will be on next Friday at 5:30 p.m. Till then, bye-bye, good night, and take care.